right, everybody. Hope everybody can hear me. Gonna get going now. Welcome to Denver Amazon Web Services User Group meeting for April 2020. It's our second virtual, so hopefully getting a little more down than the last time. My name is David McDaniel, also known as Mac. I'm the Director of Cloud Professional Services at Quinix. You can reach me at mac@quinix.io or david@mobile360.com. There's a couple Twitter handles and my LinkedIn if you're interested in connecting. So for tonight, we will talk about our communication items as usual, look at some resources, and then move right into our topic. Do feel free at any point to ask questions through the chat. I can answer. You can send them to me privately or to everybody, and I'll answer in kind. There is also somewhere on your screen there's a go slower, go faster button if I'm going too slow or too fast for you. And we'll be doing a hands-on session with WordPress and Drupal sites, and there's actually some announcements with new templates for AWS Lightsail. For those of you who haven't heard about Lightsail, it is basically Amazon's answer to the VPS, the virtual private server market, where you can buy, rent servers for $5, $10, $15 a month, and have a reasonable solution for running things like WordPress and Drupal sites. So for those of you who've been here for a while, our normal communication items, we've got a Slack channel. Just email me. I tweet every month or so on Denver AWS user group, UG. Please follow and I'll post updates. And we are listed on the Amazon Web Services user group page. If you have any announcements you'd like me to share, I'd be happy to put them in the slide deck. Just give me a day or so notice and I'll put them in. So on the updates, Cognito, for anybody that's not used that as the user authentication mechanism or service within AWS. It's pretty nice because it does federated things like federates with Facebook and Google, Twitter, things like that. And now they've added Apple sign-in. So now you can use your Apple ID to authenticate against an app using Cognito. So it's nice because it allows your own user pools or people to authenticate with any of those other providers. Elastic MapReduce has been released at the 6.0.0 release, and it adds this wonderful new thing called Docker. For those running EMR, you were not able to use Docker in the past, and now you're able to. RDS MariaDB 10.4 has been released. And for RDS also, the RDS proxy for PostgreSQL is now GA. And what that allows you to do is make better use of things like Lambdas and serverless technologies that aren't really good at maintaining stateful connections. So the RDS proxy is the piece that will maintain those connections for you, and then you can just basically send via HTTPS SQL statements to your RDS server. Redshift has added elastic resizing, so you can now dynamically change the size of your cluster without taking it down. Elastic Beanstalk has been around for a very long time, kind of one of the original early on services, and they've finally done a rebuild on the console, much needed and much appreciated. ECS, this is a cool one, actually now supports EFS file systems. So it's now a lot easier to provide persistent storage and shared storage across ECS tasks and services without getting really complicated, because it's now just an access profile inside of ECS. So that allows for a lot of benefits there when you're using ECS. GuardDuty, a great security service for catching real-time threats has been reduced in price. Highly recommend it. It saved a client of mine um, tens of thousands of dollars in from a stolen AWS key pair, and they got hacked, and it was noticed immediately and shut down. Then Elasticache for Redis has a global option, so it can be a single unified Redis cluster across any region. Amazon Connect is a nice kind of call center in a box, is the way Amazon likes to pose it. And now they've added voicemail. So now you can automatically implement voicemail boxes for different people within your call center. IAM Access Analyzer has been GA'd now, and I think it's something that I would highly recommend. One thing that's always been a challenge with AWS is getting your IAM permissions correct, and making sure you're using a least privileged model. And this will at least help you see what roles and what permissions have actually been used over a time period. So then you can start to trim down these roles and not give people too much more permissions than they need. And then there are a couple Lightsail announcements, coincidentally. We've got logging and monitoring. So there's actually a blog post on how to do enhanced logging and monitoring in Lightsail. And then some new templates have come out for Ghost and Django. Any questions on any of these updates? All right, moving on. Questions? All right, so we will get right on to our hands-on section tonight. So what I have done here is simply logged into an AWS console and then navigated to the Lightsail console. It's a separate console within AWS. And do feel free to either speak or type if you have any questions at all, or if I'm going too fast. So like I said, the Lightsail is really kind of a VPS competitor to things like DigitalOcean, and there's a number out there where you can select platforms and then choose from pre-built blueprints. So we're just going to use US West 2A in Oregon. And then basically you can either choose Windows, and it gives you a couple options. And I guess the only app they have is actually a SQL Server Express. Or the more popular one is to do Linux, and you can either just do the OS only using Amazon Linux, Ubuntu, Debian, OpenSUSE, CentOS, etc. Or you can choose to have it pre-configured with some various templates. You can actually use this, which is interesting, to build your own Plesk hosting solution. So for any of you who have used solutions renting VPS servers from other companies where your dashboard as the user is Plesk, that is one of the certified solutions here on Lightsail. We've got GitLab, Joomla, Magento is a shopping cart system, just a standard Nginx web server. You've got your LAMP stack with PHP, MySQL, Linux, obviously. And we'll just go ahead and set up a simple WordPress site. It's as easy as just selecting which template or blueprint you want. And then you can add launch scripts in that will be executed, shell scripts that will be executed the first time your instance is booted. Just like every standard Amazon instance, you can have a SSH key pair to connect to it from your console, or the way you generally do it with Lightsail is you just connect through the web console, so you don't have to worry about that. And then automatic snapshots will take backups of your entire server. And it's generally a daily thing. I believe you can now customize it a little bit. And then this is why it's very competitive, because there's really only a limited number of options compared to EC2. You're not getting, 64 vCPUs and hundreds of gigabytes of memory. You're doing it for, your pretty fair to midline website servers. So you can go as low as $3.50 a month, $5 a month, and then you can sort by the price, memory, storage, or transfer. So all these things are metered. You get your price is metered, your memory is metered, processing, and you can see as you go up in price, you get more disk space and more monthly transfer. And transfer is basically equivalent to EC2 egress. We can give it a name, give it some tags like you would in normal EC2, and then we'll go ahead and hit create. And I guess they've got a partnership with GoDaddy now, so you can sign up right through GoDaddy and get your domains. The other thing that's interesting is you can, as we show, you can create database instances as well. So you can either go MySQL or Postgres. And you could do this, both WordPress and Drupal use either MySQL or Postgres databases in the background. Typically, they're hosted on the same server, which is not always the most secure or performant environment. If you were really running, something with user accounts and, maybe credit card processing, you would want to have a more secure environment. But this does allow you to set up basically hosted MySQL or Postgres in a cheaper solution than using RDS. But it gives you very good performance and very easy to do. So this is something that a lot of people can really easily handle. So here you can see we've got our WordPress site, 1 gig of RAM, 1 vCPU, 40 gigs of storage. And basically right away, we can just create a web console. And it's probably still starting up. So you do have to give it a minute. When you do snapshots, they would appear here. So you would be able to see backups you've taken. If you schedule them for the middle of the night and something happens one day, you could just basically restore the snapshot and your entire site would be back up. You also have some networking options. You can do static IPs. If you want to make it very simple and build create a domain on GoDaddy, and then just basically manage your DNS there and tell it that your website is on this static IP, you can do that. Or you can actually set up DNS zones and load balancers if you're doing something a little more high performance or highly available. All right, let's try to connect again. All right. So here is your server. I'm just going to move this out of the way for a minute, and it should give me right here our IP address. First time it does take a little while. It's still provisioning. So here is your WordPress basic site. There is a trick to getting logged in the first time. There's a file. So on the console, there's usually files that have the Bitnami, which is the provider of WordPress, the password. So you can say Bitnami application password. This is one of the super annoying things about this. The cut and paste is not the way you would normally do it. So there's a way to log in. I think it's user. All right, so now we are in as the administrator of our new WordPress site. So you can see in a matter of less than 5 minutes, we now have a WordPress site. You can look at the plugins. There's a number. A lot of times you do want to make sure everything's updated. One of the better plugins, if you were actually going to build a site, would be the, I forget what they call it, but it's the AWS CloudFront plugin. And what that allows you to do, CloudFront is AWS's CDN, the Content Delivery Network. And what that allows you to do is put all your static content in an S3 bucket, put CloudFront in front of it, and point the static content, so all the content of your pages, your images especially, all up on an S3 bucket, which is really cheap. And that way you keep it actually out of your WordPress server, and your WordPress server is not actually serving that content. It's CloudFront. So from the outside, when you build a CloudFront distribution, you can automatically put a free SSL cert in front of it. So if you were to set up your domain and say GoDaddy, you would then create a Route 53 domain entry for your domain name and validate it using email address. And then you would set up a Amazon certificate manager entry, create a certificate, and be able to use that for free in front of your CloudFront distribution. So when somebody goes to your website, you would have the nice HTTPS and the lock. It's a perfectly valid certificate. It's not a private certificate, and it gives you all the security and power of big websites with literally minutes to get all that done. If I had a spare domain to show you, I could set it up real quick, but that's a little beyond what I was planning on talking about tonight. But this, I built a website for a wedding company, and they had a lot of very high-res images, wedding destinations and wedding gifts, things like that. So we put, I think it was 120 gigs of images and videos out on S3, hooked up the WordPress plugin, and set it up so they had a very small WordPress server that really only dealt with adding comments and managing the site rather than serving static images. And that saved a lot of processing power, a lot of time. And when somebody uploads images, the plugin automatically puts it out to S3. So there's no additional work to be done. But in general, this is exactly how we just got into our WordPress site. And you can see everything. And I'm sure as somebody looks at this recording, they'll try to use that same password. So I'm going to be sure to destroy this site here. Any questions on setting up a WordPress server?
When you were talking about that plugin, is it just the AWS plugin, or is it the?
I think it's a different one. I saw that there. It's been a couple years since I did it.
It's not that big of a deal. I was just curious.
This is a different one, which I actually also like a lot. This one is more for textual blogging sites. I actually run a WordPress, my personal blog's on WordPress. And what this does is it puts a little read to me link on every post, and it will use Amazon Translate to read the text, and basically it will create an MP3 file and download it for the user. so that instead of having to sit on a screen and read it, they can read it. They can have the system play it from your phone or across your car speakers. So that one's really, really cool. I was actually building something similar to it when AWS came out with theirs. So I decided not to compete with them. And then, WordPress is probably the number one website hosting software in the world. I'm not a big fan of it myself, just because there's some particularities, and it probably has more to do with my lack of knowledge of WordPress getting me into trouble than anything else. So for now, I'm just going to say goodbye to Lightsail. And one of the really nice things is it's very easy just to say, hey, I want to create this and I want to delete it. One thing I'll do first is I believe I can come in here. I thought I could create a snapshot. So yes, here we go.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Quick question. This is the first time I'm seeing a Lightsail demo, so I just have a quick question. Can you assign an elastic IP address to your Lightsail instance?
You can create a, this is a public, this is elastic. Do you mean like an EIP?
So, so for example, like what would happen to the public IP address that's assigned to this instance if you reboot the Lightsail instance?
If you reboot it, you'll get the same IP address.
Oh, okay.
If you stop it, I actually don't know that you can stop.
So is this a public dynamic IP or this is public static IP?
This is a dynamic IP.
So if then it can be changed at any time.
It would not be changed while you're running. It would only change if you stop and start it. If you wanted a fully static IP, you would just create a static IP here. And it has a small cost to it, but that would give you a never changing IP.
So if we are using public IP, how we are going to handle the DNS problem?
You would, so either, let's see, I'm not sure if they create you a name. What I would do is if you were going to do a load balancer, you would put your load balancer up in here so it maintains the link no matter what the IP address is. Or if you were using Route 53, I would use a static IP or use the private IP.
But private IP cannot be accessible from the outside, right?
Right. If you were doing a load balancer, like an application load balancer or network load balancer, you could use the private IP.
Okay. Thanks.
If you were using like a Route 53, you would create a static IP and use that. So it kind of depends on what you're exactly trying to do. But basically, we could turn on automatic snapshots, and then it will generate a daily snapshot at midnight every night. Or I could just go ahead and create a snapshot right now. This will take a couple minutes, and then if anything, so I would recommend creating snapshots every time you apply updates, because I've seen both in WordPress and Drupal updates break your system if they didn't get applied correctly. And once the update is applied, you can just, if it doesn't work, you can just restore from your snapshot, and it becomes a lot more, so it makes it more assuring that you're going to be able to survive any upgrade problems you've had. In the meantime, let's go create a Drupal database, a Drupal website. And I just don't know anything about Joomla really. So I'll use a slightly more expensive one, create the instance. And now where I'm going, I'll go back to my WordPress and look at my snapshots. Still snapshotting. And this is still building. We've got our IP address.
So after taking the snapshot, where it is putting the snapshot in storage?
It stores it. So a lot of the services in Lightsail are kind of behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's storing it in S3 in essence, but you can't see it in an S3 bucket.
Okay, so if I need to restore again, then where what I need to do that?
You would restore it from here. So you see, I've got this instant snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's created now, and once it's done doing the full snapshot, I'll be able to click on it and restore from that snapshot. So you don't have to worry about you do it right here.
Okay. So it will give me the option to restore something?
Yes. Once the snapshot's done, we'll check it in a few minutes. Well, in the meantime, our Drupal has come up. And I haven't done, we'll connect. Let's see if it's really up. Yeah, not quite yet. At another job, I actually migrated somebody to Lightsail. They were running just kind of corporate informational WordPress sites, and it worked so well for them. They had almost zero downtime where they were experiencing a lot of downtime before. Because as their traffic kind of changed over the years, they weren't really able to change their servers, and it becomes a lot easier to do that here. Okay, let's see if we're up. Not quite yet. That's probably not going to work either.
And so as this grows and you need more for your WordPress site or something, do you have to create a new instance and migrate data over, or can you grow it? I'd assume it's not truly elastic. Like
it's not elastic like auto scaling groups or as powerful as regular EC2. I will have to check. I'm going to just try this because I've actually been trying to run GitLab for another client. So I'm going to fire up one of those too. Let's check the snapshot and see if it allows you to change types. So here's what you would do. Oh, look at that. You can export it right to Amazon EC2. That's a new feature. So if we create a new instance, snapshot source, oh, look at that. We're able to resize the instance right from the snapshot. That's what I thought was the case, but I wanted to make sure.
That's pretty cool.
So basically I can just say, hey, I need to double from 2 gig to 4 gig my memory and just go. And then if you're using the networking, you just swap out the instances, delete the old one, and you're good to go. So this should be up. There we go. And I think, because this is a Bitnami, it's probably the same thing. And I kind of did this to myself. And Drupal's a little different, where usually the first time you go to it, it wants you to set some stuff up. What is the default Drupal username? There we go. So it's user 2. So now we have our complete Drupal website. Some things I really like about Drupal are the theme. You can set new themes. So this is a theme that's just a little better. Let's see, how do you set it? I forgot. Oh, this is the default theme already. So it gives you a lot of ability to configure modules. And I actually built a product years ago, 10 years ago, as a Drupal plugin, basically. And it's all PHP, MySQL, pretty straightforward. It allows you to build really nice looking websites, and the themes are really the key to doing that. Let's see if our GitLab is up. Oh, look at that, it's Bitnami also. Have any of you ever used?
GitLab is the repository, right? Where you are putting the code.
I'm sorry, say that again.
GitLab is repository, right? Where you are putting the code.
Yes, it is. I was just about to ask if anybody's ever used GitLab here. Looks like it's still starting up. Yeah, GitLab is a open source and commercial, both repository and CI/CD system.
Version control.
Version control and continuous integration and continuous deployment. So like a Fortune 250 enterprise I work with uses it for all their source code control, version control, and then also to run Terraform to deploy all their cloud infrastructure.
But for CI/CD, we need to use another tool, right? Like Jenkins or some Azure DevOps.
No, GitLab has their CI/CD component. So it's called GitLab CD. Yeah, that's part of GitLab. So it will automatically run pipelines for you when you check in code to a repository.
But we need to configure it, right? It will not take automatically. We need to configure it.
Yeah, as with every tool, you'll need to configure it.
Yeah.
But it's becoming a very, very popular tool. For people that like it's similar on a version control level with GitHub. It is Git compliant, so you can use the same tools, but it has the additional ability to do the runners or the continuous deployment integration. So it's very nice from that perspective. And then this the blog I was telling you about here is this blog on setting up monitoring and notifications. So if there are ever issues, you can actually set up notifications via email and SMS, and then you'll get either emails or texts when something is outside of a metric boundary you define. So you can say
so that
things.
We need to use the CloudWatch.
You don't have to. No, that's what this is saying is you don't have to get into CloudWatch. You can do it right in Lightsail.
Okay. Okay.
And this is basically putting a simpler skin on CloudWatch and SNS and things like that. So it's a lot easier to use. There's less metrics you can look at, but there's ones that matter, like CPU utilization, if your host is up or down. So you get those abilities to email or text them to you. So again, without running a full staff, doing 24/7 monitoring, you can at least get notifications if there's any issues with your sites. Let's see, looks like GitLab is not too happy. I might have chosen a server that's just a little too small for GitLab, because I'm sitting here typing on it and I can see my letters echo. Yeah, here's the GitLab one. Can't even get it to respond. So I probably needed to select a bigger instance to run GitLab on. GitLab will allow you to run builds in Docker, allow you to create Docker images. I'm working with another client on building a GitLab pipeline for building and deploying Docker images to Kubernetes right now. So it's very powerful. It's probably still just starting up. The first time GitLab has to go through kind of a large configuration process. It uses Helm and Chef to configure all of the different applications that are deployed. Yeah, it's still building. When this runs, it will tell us the status of all the different pieces. It's got Nginx web server built in. I think it's got Redis, a container registry, Unicorn. There's a whole bunch of different services that are deployed as part of GitLab. But while we're waiting for this, any other questions on what we've seen tonight? All right, well, this is obviously just a server too small. I have been recording tonight, and I will make a copy of the recording, and I'll put it up on the meetup page, and I'll tweet it out using the Denver AWS CG Twitter handle, and I'll probably put it on my LinkedIn as well, and my blog. So unless there are any other questions right now, we'll go ahead and wrap up for tonight. I know this was a little quick. I'm still trying to get used to the less interactive virtual style of the meetings. I'm used to being up in front of people and being able to interact a little more easily. But I do appreciate everybody taking their time to join us tonight, and I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.